Hello. Yeah, a little bit of an impromptu live again because I was just settling down to do some work with a map for one of my clients, which you can't see the details of, but I'll show you in a minute. Just to show you a little bit about map dowsing. Now, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Faye Semple and I am an alignment strategist in that I align people, their purpose in their business or their personal life to the place where they live. So if you're a successful business person and you've just bought your dream villa, and that's great, and you move into it, then what happens if you get there and you find that things are starting to go wrong in that place? Things in that house just don't feel right. So you can be as successful as you like outside in the world, but sometimes the very places that we're in, we really need to look at. So one of the things I say as I do is I align people, their purpose in life, with the very places that they exist. And that doesn't necessarily just mean homes. It can be business enterprises of all sorts of descriptions that I work with. You can't, so the fundamental thing how I work is that we as individuals, we are in control of our own lives fundamentally and our own happiness. And so we are also not responsible for other people's happiness. We can't make your partner happy. But the other third party in that relationship where you live is what the Romans used to call the genus loci, the consciousness of place. Places themselves have a consciousness. And that's often it's engaging with that consciousness, which is why we built mosques where they're built, why we built temples where they are built, why we built castles where they are built, why, Willem, we built the pyramids where they are built. There are places within the landscape where certain energies or things align to make them very special. But we also learned, I think, long ago, how to recreate those energies to make places special. And what that means is that when you have a goal or a purpose in life, if you're doing it from a place that is sacred and in aligned and aware of your purpose, then you get a much better impetus, a flow within that. Because if you view the place where you live as a conscious contributor to the relationship that you share with it, then it's a two-way process. You feel what it's feeling, but it feels what you're feeling. Now, if you move to a new house, for instance, or you just buy a new business premises, you just buy a new race yard or 20,000 acre estate, whatever it may be, that place is conscious of what it was up until that point. We hope. It might not even have been aware of who owned it. Not many people walk their bounds anymore. They don't talk to the land because they think they're going to be locked up or stuff like that. So when I work with people, I encourage them to actually to inform the place. And if that means going outside and talking out loud to it or walking around the boundaries, inform the place that they are now the custodians of it, not the owners, the custodians, who they are, that they come with open and honest intent, and what their aims and ambitions are from this property. So if it's a house and they're a successful person, so I want to come here for rest, recuperation, I want a work area as well, but I also need to get away from it all, etc., etc. So that you've created a space that is aware of what you're trying to achieve in it. And then what you'd want to do is you want to work with the energies within that space. So if you had an area that was mostly for rest and relaxation, you'd want to make sure that the earth energies are conducive to rest and relaxation. If you had an office where you wanted to be much more active, engaged, and going out there, and the energies in that office need to be in alignment with that, they need to be able to enable you to go out there and go for it if you're a successful business person. So where you are, the energies will impact upon your enterprise. Now, as I say, one of the things I work with is engaging with space, and is particularly with the consciousness of the environment. And one in particular that I work with in Great Lets is the consciousness of water. Now, anybody who's into water in any way will know what a spectacular and amazing substance it is. It acts contrary to most of the laws of physics. So, for instance, when it condenses from a liquid to a solid, it actually expands, and the solid weighs less than liquid. That is why ice floats. Now, if ice didn't float, the bottom of the seas would all freeze up, the major rivers would freeze up, and the whole water system would go kaput. It also has a really high boiling temperature compared to other liquids, and that gives it the capacity to absorb what they call a lot of latent heat in the air, which is why when you spray something to cool it down, it actually does so, because it absorbs all the heat. It has a lot of amazing properties, really high surface tension like mercury, so that you get this lovely bowl of water that will gloop over your glass before it descends down the sides. Now, water is an amazing thing. There's lots of really interesting research into water at the moment, such as reducing hydrogen from water, deuterium reduced water, vortex water, all these things. I personally think we used to use a long time ago. A lot of ancient sites have a lot of what we would think of as sort of strange structures, particularly South America or the pyramids, them again. So that water really worked, whether they were, like, say, splitting hydrogen for the oxygen, or in certain sites, water seems to have gone through pools, vortex down, water falls through another pool, down another waterfall, vortex again. What that vortexing process does is it actually changes the molecular structure of water, so that water ceases to be what they call H2O, which is bulk water, 1 hydrogen to 2 oxygen, your little Mickey Mouse, to H3O2. So you have 3 molecules of hydrogen to 2 of oxygen. And what it forms a hexagonal beehive structure. Now, that water is incredibly important in the body. It's the water that comes out of deep springs. It's the water that we create when we drink water. So water is a phenomenal substance. So one of the ways that when I work with landscape particularly, yes, I work with earth energies and dragon lines, whatever you want to call them, but one of the fundamental things I work with is water. Now, I'm just going to do a little bit of a demonstration live for everybody with my extremely technical pendulum you will see there, which is in fact a nut on a piece of cotton. Because once you get to know me, people will realise that I'm actually very down to earth and basic there. As a lot of people have all sorts of protocols and want to wear a purple robe and strap a chicken to their head because it's Tuesday, and all sorts of things, and what they call protocols. And no doubt, don't get me wrong, I get myself in a place for dowsing. I have absolute respect for the landscape, ancestors, whatever else might be in there. But I think people can get too wrapped up in protocols and all this kind of thing. And actually, you can just get down to it, as long as you say to yourself, I want to be kept safe and secure while I'm doing this dowsing. And I just want to tune into the landscape. Now, as I've explained before, I'm quite unusual in that I see earth energies and all sorts of shapes and geometrical structures all around things. But dowsing actually helps me make sense of what I see. So I've got a map below me. I'm going to tilt the camera down in a minute, and I'm going to show you how I dowse for water from a map. Now, I'm quite unusual that when I have a map in front of me, it's almost akin to remote viewing. What I'll see is the 3D structure in front of me rising out of the map of what that place actually looks like, so I can describe it to people and I can see the topography and stuff like that. Now, this particular establishment is it's an equine establishment, because one of the things I work with is horses, and there is a particular problem. I don't quite know where, but there is a particular problem with certain stables of behaviour of horses and illness and things like that. Now, in the wild, there are all sorts of water behaviours under the ground, and we know they affect us above ground. Now, in the wild, horses, any animal, would just be able to wander off. It's all open plains and prairies, and they'll just be able to wander off where they like, and they wouldn't be stuck in a particular housed environment. This is true of any housed animal, whether it's cattle or sheep. They do not like being over particular types of underground water. So when they're housed, I think we have to be particularly careful of actually what's under the ground. So this is a property that I've just started working on. It's a property I'm just about to start geomancing on. Yes, Joanne, I can sense things and see things all over the place. So yeah. So what I'll do is I'll just show you, in case anybody wants to have a go at map dowsing, you can make it as complicated or in my case as simple as anything, because I like to keep everything very simple. Otherwise you just start wanting to chant, like I say, strapping chicken to your head and worshipping cucumbers or whatever it might be. So it's important that you keep grounded, keep real, and you know, don't let the realms of fantasy go about you. So this is, I'm just going to track, I'm going to identify the key streams. I think it's particularly one, so I'll just show you how I would do it, to identify the stream, and I'll just show you how you dowse across a map to identify things. So I'm just going to tilt the camera down a minute. The map might look a bit white because of lighting and everything, but it'll just show you the processes that I would go through. I'll carry on talking so that you can see what I'm doing. Right, so here is said map of property. You probably can see it better than I can, in fact, with the light. Now, there are some buildings in the middle here, and there are behavioural problems with, shall we put it, quite expensive horses in this area. So we want to find out what's wrong with them. So one of the things I would ask was, I'll just show you in essence, when I'm dowsing, you can have all sorts of responses, but a crucial one to have is a yes response, and my pendulum goes that way, and I'll set it back to reset, and a no response, which you will see, hopefully, goes in the opposite direction. Not always, there are different responses, but those are mine. So I would ask, is water one of the contributory factors to the problems with the horses in this stable? And there we have a yes. So now I want to work out if where the buildings are, where are the streams coming in. Now what will probably happen is I may not get a yes response. I may get a directional response, so the pendulum might move in a particular direction. Now maps are great because they're already gridded for you, so you don't really have to think about it. So I want to try and find a stream. I'll start from way back because we don't know where it's coming from the map. I want to find a stream that's running through the stables that can be causing a problem, which is there. So then what I do is I grab my compass, because I'm going to be doing some sacred geometry on this map later to try and sort the problems out, but I won't be doing that now. And then I will carry on going. And I've got one right up there, but it's going in that angle. So they're quite some distance away. So the thing I'm going to ask now is, are there any more streams that are contributing to the negative impact on the horses within this area here? And that's a no. Right. Is this stream contributing to the negative impact on horses? Mildly, somehow. Is this stream a tributary perhaps to this stream? Because that can happen. Yes, it is. Right. So is it from the same spring? Yeah. Is the spring something that I should be looking at for this case? Yes. So I'll probably, when I'm working on the water, what I'll probably have to do is I'll probably have to find the source of the spring. And I know a little bit about the landscape, and I know there are some springs up here. So does this stream come from the spring over here? Yes. I don't need to trace it back now. But what I then need to do is you need to work out where the spring is. So I know it's there. So I'm coming in again, and I want to know, and there it is again. So again, you mark it on the map. Now what will happen is you will end up following this stream. It may not be straight, it may sort of meander its way across here. And then I would want to follow it underneath the buildings. So if I come down here, and here, and here, and here, and here, ooh, so there we go. So it's there. Now it's going through those buildings. So it's probably turning. So if I just do some little dots to let me know that it's turning. So I don't know exactly where the horses are housed yet, but I'm sensing it's probably here. So is this where the horses are housed? I'll verify that tomorrow, of course, with the owner, because it's as well to verify your dowsing responses when you can. Otherwise, you'd be going off in the realms of blind faith, and you don't really know whether you're right or not. So you constantly need to check, and you also constantly need to check your yeses and your nos and things like that to make sure that they are correct. So there's a stream within there, and then I would use, because I can't get there, it's miles away. I'm not going to travel there. I'm not. So one of the techniques that I would use, I'd be then using sacred geometry on this map. I'm just going to stop now so you see my very technical pendulum. So one of the techniques I would now use, I would be using various techniques on the map. So I would be using sacred geometry techniques, which are done on the map, labyrinthine structures, and the elements of fire and water and things like that. And what I would be asking questions of now is, of this stream, what does it need to feel good? And and there can be blockages, and there can be all sorts of things, and there can be an essence of clearing, and it might want some engagement from the people who actually live there. It's not that long ago that, you know, countries did well blessings and all sorts of things. We know water carries memory. If you look at Masaru Emoto's work, there's all sorts of other things. Water in, you know, myth and legend is a consciousness. You know, the Lady of the Lake, you know, gods from the oceans. It's all sorts of things. We personified consciousnesses, I think, in legend. You know, we personified them so we could make a sense of them. We personify a lot of things. So every country in the world has got a name for pixies, elves, fairies, and all the rest of it. Now, it doesn't mean there are little people wandering around with pointy ears and wings, unless you want to see them like that, I suppose. But it means, as a species, as a human species, we were trying to get a handle on something that we knew existed in nature and make it, give it a form that we felt we could understand and interact with. And possibly even use them to explain things that we had difficulty explaining. It doesn't mean weird and wacky things, but, you know, things like changelings, elves coming in and changing babies. You know, it might have been an old-fashioned way of explaining postnatal depressions or failure to bond with babies, but it was, you know, we didn't know anything about it in those days. But nonetheless, we perceived the landscape as a conscious interactor. It was a conscious part of our relationship with reality. And the good thing about nature consciousness is it's once you get used to working with it, it's a great thing to work with, because it's not riddled with the self-doubt and insecurities that people are. So a tree doesn't stand there every morning going, oh my God, my branches look good enough, and is my trunk too big? You know, it just doesn't think like that. It just, every morning, no matter how battle scarred, it just goes, I am tree, or I am Gru. So the consciousnesses in nature don't think the way we do, and we often put human emotion and thought on landscape and animals, and they just exist on a much different plane that we do. So it's about letting go of self when you're dowsing. Don't worry about what you look like, what you feel. Letting go of self, being unattached to the answer. Because I might work with this water now, and it might say, actually, I want you to do ceremonies, and I would like to be worshipped, and I want offerings, or I want forgiveness. You know, I need to forgive you. You've dumped a load of stuff in me back in the spring. The water's polluted. And I'm vocalizing that in a very human way, but you get these sort of, I get essences, images, and impressions. And it's about engaging with those and not limiting your understanding, not saying, oh, that can't possibly be real. Because there's so much research, I say, nowadays coming about manifestation, about our thoughts changing matter. You know, we have an incredible power within us to make a wonderful world and landscape, and a lot of it we're messing up. So don't, you know, every thought you think has an effect. Make it a positive one. Look at the landscape with love. Look at the fact that it's, you know, in essence, raped and pillaged all the time. You know, even at Harvest Festival, we go, oh, great, thank you. Nature's wonderful bounty. Nature's wonderful bounty that affects through farming. We've actually forced it to produce. But, you know, so there's all sorts of different layers that you can look at. So if you want to have a go at dowsing, I'd say it is very, very simple. One of the things you can start with is just simply your yes and your no. And it's a question of, you can say, show me a yes. Am I Fae? Is this my left hand? You can go and touch things and go, is this a wall? Knowing that it's a wall, so you'll get a yes response. And then you can wander around doing all sorts of things. Or you can touch this sofa and go, is it a dog? And then you'll get a no, because obviously it's a sofa, not a dog. So practice on the things that you know the answer to first, because you're completely unattached to the answer. It doesn't matter. You know what the answer is going to be, so it doesn't matter. And then you work in from there. So you start to do things that you don't know the answer, you can't see. It's a very simple tool. Anybody can do it. As I say, you can wrap yourself up in far too many protocols and worry yourself to death about this, that, and the other. And actually, you know, so long as you make the intent that you're going in with honest and open intent, and you want to be in a safe, secure place, and you're doing it from your heart center with love, then, you know, you will be fine. And you can get a lovely crystal pendulum and all sorts of things, the nicest pendulum, brass pendulums, all you want. Or you can, in fact, like I do, go to the hardware shop and pick up a nut. Because it doesn't matter if you lose it. So that was a little insight into map dowsing. This is an equestrian centre, so I'll now have to go back to them and say, are the horses housed in this area? I'll try and do some identification on the behaviour that they're picking up on, or things that they've got, and I'll present that to the owner first before I look at any reports from him or medical reports from the vet and stuff like that to find out what's happening, because it's important that they have faith in me, that I have kind of honed in on. I've had a little bit of an insight, but nothing major. So it's important that they have faith in me, that I'm coming completely blind and putting on something. I've got some really interesting water experiments coming up. Well, not water experiments, more water work coming up. So if I get the chance, I'll try and post a bit more, because I've got some water to work on and all sorts of things. And I'll try and post a bit more so people can kind of get a hand of what I do. So for instance, if that was under a property that you were thinking of buying, and I thought that water was going to influence your success as business, which is one of the things I do. So people say, I bought this great house, well, just, it's my dream house, but I moved there and everything's gone wrong. Then, yeah, there is an evidence of why did you bought it, because, it could be pushing buttons in you that challenges the things that you need to become aware of. You're becoming more aware, more self-developed, whatever. But nonetheless, there's still a little bit of, the land is still a consciousness, it's still a being of itself. We don't know what's happened to it. You don't know what roadworks have been on. You don't know water courses have been altered. We don't know what ground collapses have gone on. And yes, they're natural phenomena, some of them, but we have an awful impact, a large impact on the landscape with things like roadworks, construction, radio mass, all sorts of things that just didn't exist. If you look at the natural world, there are no roads, there are no houses. Man has a huge impact on the landscape, and when we do that, we need to be very careful in what we're doing. So I'll come back and talk about water and stuff like that, and pumps and wells again if anybody's interested. But thank you everybody who's joined, and yeah, and I'll do some more if anybody's interested. All right then, thanks, bye. When I can turn it off, I've lost my mouse. Oh look, there we are.